was the beast. It ripped him apart.
You can't kill her, you fool!
Dean Puckett writes and directs The Severed Son, a 2024 folk horror. Now, this is a movie that takes place in a kind of ambiguous time. It could be the past, although it could be some type of future. Everyone kind of dresses like maybe 19th century, but the suggestion is that maybe this is some type of future which has gone back to kind of more traditional times after some type of event. Anyway, it focuses on this small rural religious community that has a strict kind of patriarchal society, and the movie focuses on this character called Magpie, who is this headstrong woman that is the daughter of the pastor, or the kind of like the religious leader of this community. And she has been forced to marry what appears to be a abusive husband, but she decides that she's going to poison the husband and chop him up and say it was some type of accident. Now, the villagers seem to not believe this story, and in doing this kind of murder, Magpie may have released some type of entity, some type of supernatural creature, which seems to be kind of like lurking around and maybe even doing Magpie's bidding. Now, this kind of wave of supernatural terror continues as it appears that this force, whatever it might be, is targeting abusive men that are harming women, and now Magpie is getting accused of witchcraft. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. Or will you find out? Because I've also, this is one ambiguous movie with lots of kind of symbolism and sort of somewhat of an allegorical nature. Now, let's talk about what I think works in this movie's favour. I think this movie is asking some questions of the audience and is presenting like this a sort of vague set of circumstances and sort of a story which can be read into. And if that sounds like something you might enjoy, then continue watching, I suppose. What I will say that legitimately works in this movie is it has this kind of haunting element through it. It's a very sort of quiet movie. I mean, this is kind of like a folk horror movie, I guess you would call it. And you can compare it to the likes of kind of The Wicker Man and that sort of thing. You know, this strange sort of out of the way rural religious community that possibly has regressed to these more like feudal type beliefs. So, you know, they're very superstitious and believing in kind of omens and things like this. But it has this sort of weird kind of off-kilter but sort of unnerving feel through the whole movie, where, you know, you just feel that unease through the entire thing because people seem so easily sort of rattled, and this community seems so fragile in many ways. It gives you this uneasy feeling. And I also think that this is benefited by two things. I think the way the movie is shot, it's not like a film which is about jump scares or anything like that. It just has this sort of unnerving atmosphere through the movie. We do see a kind of a supernatural element. We have this kind of creature that seems to lurk and just kind of appear, and it's not attacking people overtly. Well, it does, but it's not like it's scary moments and stuff. It's more about this kind of this encroaching doom, really, and things like that. But it's very well shot in that respect, in the fact that the majority of this movie is in quite bright sunlight, but you still have this feeling of like this odd sense of what's kind of going on. Underscored, which is the other good thing I really enjoyed with this, is this great sort of sound design and soundtrack, which again kind of you almost have this sort of kind of understated music that sort of plays through the movie, giving it this sort of, again, adding to this feeling of uneasiness really through the film. I think the acting is all solid here, and it sort of hints to a lot of things about what's kind of going on in this community without really spending too much time on it. But everyone does a good performance here, and Magpie stands out as the one who is maybe thinks a little differently compared to this other sort of villages and things like this, and she doesn't quite want to fit in with this sort of community and how it's you know, how it's being kind of governed by her father and the men in this kind of village. So there's some sort of interesting stuff going on. There is VFX, there is creature effects, there is gore effects in this movie. The creature effects are quite unique, I would suggest. It's sort of like a silhouette type creature, and it looks, it's not like a grotesque monster or anything like that, but it's just, it has this sort of like weird, sort of otherworldly feel to it. But nonetheless, there is a couple of somewhat, you know, mildly gory deaths as well, which are done to a good standard. So there's plenty of stuff here on like a technical element and in the craft kind of the movie that I think you can definitely say works in many ways. Where this movie maybe would turn some people off is its ambiguity about what's actually happening, even from the point with, you know, when is this? Is this Earth? In which case, when is it? Is it in the past? Is it in the future? It's deliberately being really sort of ambiguous as to even when this is taking place. You can't even say, well, you know, this is what they were like in the 16th century or something like that, because it's not really pinning itself deliberately to any particular kind of time frame. And as I say, I think the suggestion in this is actually it's sometime in the future. But as to, you know, just what's actually going on, I mean, it appears this is, I guess you would say this is like a woman struggling, a kind of patriarchal society. Again, that might not be something which might appeal to many people, because that's kind of where you feel this movie is hanging its hat in regards to the main thrust of the kind of the narrative. This woman trying to break out of confines of this kind of patriarchal society. It's kind of the bulk of what's kind of going on here. You know, and the kind of the religious aspect as well, how people are sort of go on with this kind of mob rule mentality, and how people can kind of be just sort of coerced and manipulated and all these sort of things. So there's lots of themes in the movie, but I don't know if it's particularly sort of in a cohesive narrative is the best way I would describe it. You never really feel like there's a strong through line in a story here. It's more of just like a lot of themes and ideas in this kind of like quite well put together kind of like movie on a craft level. But there's, I don't know, there's just stuff here that really you feel that stuff is introduced, but then not a lot is done with it. So is the creature actually real? Is it some type of metaphor for actually Magpie doing these things, or is there actually a creature? If so, where has it come from? There's the suggestion that Magpie has brought it. There's a suggestion that something has come out of the Earth. The Earth itself is somehow responsible. There's other things like, is Magpie having sex with this creature? Because there's a scene where we this woman tells, I've seen her having sex with this creature. We kind of see it. Is that real or is that imagined? You know, she's having an affair with her stepson, but it's kind of nothing's really sort of built upon it. I mean, even her husband, who we assume is abusive, we never actually see that. It's just the assumption. But you can arguably say if she's having an affair with the stepson, was that the motivation for killing the husband? Again, and then there's like this kind of like other character who has this kind of like gay relationship with a character, and okay, it's obviously on the down low, but again, where are you going with it? It doesn't really feel like it sort of, it introduces it, but then doesn't do much with it. It's just a case of like, oh, these people are repressed, so we'll introduce this element to it, but then it's just kind of never really brought up again. So, you know, I feel this movie is having these sort of somewhat interesting ideas, certainly wrapped in this very well put together in some ways movie in regard to the technical and craft elements, but the story wise, as I say, it's just maybe just too vague, too ambiguous as to what's going on. And this is by design. This is, I have to say, I mean, this is the director's first feature. I believe this is based on a short film he'd previously made. And maybe it's a kind of like the projects that he has wanted to make, and I think it would appeal to sort of art house or that sort of kind of experimental style of film that, you know, some people may enjoy. But as far as the narrative is concerned, I feel this movie is lacking, deliberately so. It's a choice, not rather than it just hasn't had one. And I feel that might put people off. I think, you know, I've got to give this movie credit for what it does right in regards to, as I say, the cinematography, the sound design, the acting, some of the ideas that are introduced. But when it's all stitched together as a movie as a whole, it's the kind of like it's individual pieces don't make up to this whole movie, if that makes sense. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 because it's just a kind of like, it's going to appeal to some and not others. If you just want a sort of an interesting movie that feels like it's almost a kind of a remnant of the 60s in some respects, you may want to check it out. Very much a film which is about mood and atmosphere and a sense of dread than it is about a story or characters that are fully fleshed out, because that's not what you get. Oh yeah, so 5 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? Would you see it? Please do let me know your thoughts, and I'll look forward to you next time.